Hey guys, welcome back to the channel McNallie Money, the official home of power mining analysis. Earnings season is now upon us in the Bitcoin mining space, with Mara Holdings releasing their Q2 results last night. That's what we're going to be discussing in today's presentation, along with some news from Hive and Bit Digital or WhiteFiber that we wanted to discuss. Before we get into it, take a second, hit the like button, guys. Big help to myself and the channel. If you're not already subscribed, McNallie Money, feel free to join and let us know in the comment section below what you thought about Mara's results and if you're currently holding shares. With that being said, let's get into today's video. Okay guys, that's right. Wednesday afternoon here, a big interview coming up with Salman Khan, the CFO of Mara Holdings this afternoon. We're going to be putting that one out tomorrow, but we wanted to touch on the high-level earnings in today's podcast. In addition to that, some exciting news from Hive as they continue their journey towards 25 exahash, and a great little update from Bit Digital and WhiteFiber for you guys. So a lot to go through here. Before we get into it, Anthony, a quick look at the Bitcoin miner prices today. A bit of a mixed bag. We've got some green, we've got some red, and everything in the middle.
Yeah, and Bitcoin price is hovering around that 118,000 mark. So, not too much movement with the miners. Hive having a good day, and we'll come on to that announcement shortly. Mara's just released its results after close yesterday. So those two stocks leading the way at the moment. So we'll cover that as well. IREN recovering from yesterday, it dropped down to below $15.50 yesterday, which is effectively a 25% drop since it reached its highs literally just over a week ago. So we know that stock's quite strong. And yeah, so just a balanced day today. There's a few in the red as well, but nothing too discerning at the moment.
No, it's been a pretty quiet couple sessions for the Bitcoin miners here. Interesting to see IREN price action, possibly some profit taking there. I know both you and I have been making some trades in our own accounts, so make sure you guys sign up for the Power Play or on Patreon if you want to take a look at those in detail. Now let's get into the Bit Digital news first. So we've covered this story about insider share purchasing and selling, I guess, extensively on the channel. We got some news out yesterday about RSUs basically being awarded to some of the senior directors at Bit Digital. So why don't you walk us through this one, Anthony, and tell us why maybe this is a little bit different than purchasing those shares on the open market.
Yeah, so we covered Sam purchasing 500,000 shares literally a few weeks ago, and when the share price was at $2. And today we see another Form 4 hit the SEC, and effectively today is some RSU shares. These are restricted stock unit shares that have been awarded. 300,000 shares awarded on the 25th of July. And generally, with RSUs, they need to be vested over a certain period of time. So basically, you have the senior management teams of these companies get shares because the company wants to make sure that their objectives are aligned with the company objectives, and they're not just given in one day to be sold the next day. So these will be vested for a period. But, it's an extra 300 shares for Sam there. So, that's the benefit. Him and other directors in the company also received some RSU shares on the same date as well. So this is a normal practice, and we'll cover more and more of these as we see them being announced by the various companies in the coming weeks.
Yeah, we certainly will. I actually received some RSUs at my former employer before the Bitcoin days. So these ones are interesting and great to align those motives within the company. Now, the other piece we got here, and we talked about this briefly yesterday, the IPO of WhiteFiber. So they're now moving through that process. They've disclosed the amount of shares that are going to be issued and the price or the approximate range. Today, we got another piece here that shows a breakdown of the total or cumulative shares of WhiteFiber, a little more encouraging than maybe that market cap we looked at yesterday.
Yeah, and let's be full disclosure on this. This it's come from social media, but it looks from an official document. We can't find the original document anywhere on site, but this talks about how the new company will look in terms of the subsidiary, how many shares it will have compared to the Bit Digital, which is the parent company. So we talked yesterday about the amount of shares that new investors would receive. And if they take the additional shares that may be allocated, it was something around about 9 million shares in total, with a valuation of about 125 million. Those shareholders of Bit Digital will also, looks like they're also going to get a share of the WhiteFiber company, which at the moment now will represent around about 75.1% of the total offerings there. So at least those shareholders benefiting from this effectively subsidiary that's spinning off from the main company.
So the way this will basically look post spin out or post IPO, WhiteFiber will have all of the HPC AI data center contained in that company. Bit Digital will have the Ethereum staking, and of course the remaining Bitcoin mining until they determine what they want to do there. So starting to get some clarity on this one as well, which is nice. Now the next story, Hive. You basically, I guess, gave a precursor to this yesterday, Anthony, stating that we're going to get these kind of updates weekly. Here's the next one, 14 exahash, Hive continuing to plug machines in at a rapid pace.
Yeah, and they really are going. So remember, we said 6 exahash at the start of the year, now 14 exahash, and we've not even completed 7 months yet. So that's a phenomenal rise. Them sort of rise we saw from CleanSpark and IREN in 2024, maybe Hive having that same momentum this year. But yeah, we'll see these continue to come through. They should be at 18 exahash by the end of Q3 with a target, an ambitious target, by the way. But believe you me, these miners have been achieving ambitious targets, so no reason to doubt Hive. They're expected to get to 25 exahash by US Thanksgiving, which in my mindset is around about November time.
It certainly is. And if you start to look at the run rate or the total revenue run rate, this size of fleet plus the efficiency improvements really making some big strides here, on pace for $300 million in annualized revenue. So quite eye-popping numbers from Hive.
Yeah, so the annualized revenue from today, so using that 14 exahash, is 315 million, and that will continue to increase every time we get a further update. And the other good thing about this is, as they grow their hash rate in Paraguay, their total energy cost from a global perspective starts reducing, and therefore their margins will continue to increase. And the second thing is, as they're installing some of the most efficient miners in Paraguay, their efficiency rate is also going down, and that's expected to go down to 18.5 by the end of phase 2. And so with 18.5 joules a terahash and a lower energy cost, that means it's good news for the Hive. Another thing to mention quickly before we move on is the fact that Hive have managed to grow this a lot more organically than some of the other companies have grown their hash rate. So haven't gone out there and utilized significant amounts of the ATM that other companies have. So they've managed to do this in a more manageable way. And we're starting to see the fruits of that strategy in 2025.
Yeah, more of a slow and steady approach there, but avoiding some of that large dilution we've seen with the other players. So congratulations to Hive. We'll continue to keep you guys updated there. Keep in mind, we have Craig Tavares on from Buzz HPC. So Hive's subsidiary, similar to WhiteFiber, coming on next week on the 5th of August. So that's going to be a great in-depth look at HPC AI. If you have any questions, make sure you leave them in the comment section. For Craig or really any of the HPC players in the space. Now, moving along to the main event here, Mara Holdings Q2 earnings. This was a blockbuster quarter for Mara, really starting to see the impacts of that FASB or those HODL adjustments on the balance sheet. We've got the CFO, Salman Khan, on this afternoon. We're going to be releasing that video tomorrow. So we've got a long list of questions. Going to really be getting under the hood here, asking some subscriber questions or from X to the team themselves. But we wanted to give you guys a preview of the high-level numbers and anything that kind of stood out to you here, Anthony.
Yeah, I mean, in general, it's a good update, and I think the way to look at Mara Holdings now, they're on a journey of improvement. They're not going to smash it compared to other companies, probably like IREN and CleanSpark in terms of operational performance, because at the end of the day, Mara Holdings still has a significant amount of its hash rate hosted, and therefore hasn't really got that ultimate control over its whole fleet of miners. And that can impact a miner, as we found out before, not with just Mara Holdings, but with other miners as well. You need that control. You need to be making decisions about everything in the business, especially when you're using power, when you're providing maintenance, when you're doing upgrades in terms of software, etc., etc. You need to have that full control. Anything that falls out of that place then leaves the company, wanting really. But these results now, we're starting to see better financial performance from Mara. Revenue's up 64%, total of 238 million. Now, the reason for that, obviously, the Bitcoin price has rallied somewhere in the tune of, over $20,000 in terms of the value of a coin, what we saw in Q1 and what we're seeing in Q2. And so that's really helped not just Mara Holdings, but all the mining companies out there. When we look at net income, and bear in mind they made a significant loss in the previous quarter, their income this time is $808 million. Now, a lot of you be scratching your head saying, well, Anthony, they only achieved 238 million in revenue. How have they got to 808 million in net income? Well, the reason that they have is because of the FESB rules on holding Bitcoin. A lot of the miners, we spoke about this on podcasts, they do have the ruling now that they can value their Bitcoin held, and believe you, Mara have got one of the biggest hodls out there. Only strategy in terms of public companies can actually beat them in terms of size of hodl. They've got 50,000 Bitcoin. They had just under 50,000 at the end of Q2. And because of that rise in valuation from Q1 to Q2, around about $25,000 a coin, they were able to book a 1.2 billion increase due to the valuation of their Bitcoin holdings. So that gives you an indication, of when Bitcoin price is rising quarter by quarter, you see these large benefits from the FESB rules. But when the Bitcoin price drops quarter on quarter, it will have the alternative effect and we'll see losses. And so this is the strategy that we're comparing to the non-hodlers, the likes of TeraWulf, the likes of IREN, the likes of Soluna Holdings, that don't hodl any Bitcoin.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. I came across this slide on social media last night, and I wanted to ask specifically about it. If you look at what you just talked through there, Anthony, the impact of that FASB adjustment, once you strip that out, essentially becomes a loss. So I wanted to get your opinion here. There's definitely two sides of the fence. However, you can't fully discredit this hodl. That's the whole strategy of a lot of these Bitcoin treasury companies. They did go out, they purchased some of this Bitcoin on the open market, they mined some of it, they've held on to it. They should get some recognition for hodling it, but at the same time, it can lead to very lumpy quarter over quarter results, as you say.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is a very black and white, very simplistic way of looking at it. Yes, we know that the valuation of the markup in Bitcoin value, was close to 1.2 billion. And therefore, if you remove that from the reporting net income of 808, you get a loss of 384 million. However, you've got to look at, the fact that the strategy that Mara have implemented, along with other miners, and the same strategy that we're seeing alongside a lot of these treasury management companies now, is the fact that they're hodling Bitcoin because they firmly believe that the value of Bitcoin will continue to rise over given lengths of period of time. So maybe not much on a daily or a weekly basis, but over a monthly, quarterly, yearly basis, they expect to see the price of Bitcoin rise, really down to the demand for Bitcoin that we've seen this last 18 months. And we haven't seen many analysts, come out and say they're expecting some big drop. So, you have to give these companies credibility for that. So I think looking at the black and white scenario here of, oh yes, it's the three. I think you have to take a little bit more of an educated understanding of what's going on at Mara before you come out with a statement like that. There's a lot more going on there. If they were to sell their Bitcoin today, that's going to drive $6 billion in available resources to do whatever they want with that $6 million to grow hash rate in the way, or sites, or et cetera, in the way that the likes of IREN have done and other miners have done there. So, I think it's a very simplistic way of looking at it, and maybe doesn't give you the whole picture. But the FESB rules do provide an issue for miners, especially when Bitcoin is volatile and from quarter to quarter can change significantly.
Yeah, it certainly can. Now, a couple other pieces we're looking forward to talking with Mara about this afternoon. Again, video going out tomorrow, is some of these new partnerships they have specifically around the power management, load balancing, and even their yield strategy. So there's a couple great slides in the deck. They put out a Q2 deck talking about this. We'll get more detail from the CFO, Solomon, this afternoon, but some interesting talk about strategy changes or pivots under the hood here as well.
Yeah, they've definitely got some partnerships in play with Paydo AI orchestration and also the Google-backed Tay Power Solutions. And they're also expanding a partnership with 2Prime through minority investments in the company. They've already allocated 2,000 Bitcoin to their asset management platform. And I think the first 500 Bitcoin that was allocated, which was only in May, has already brought through, I think it's like 4 Bitcoin in terms of return already. So that's certainly something we'll ask Salman more about later on today. In terms of their operating at the moment, they tell us that, now they've got sort of getting towards 70% of the sites that they own, and their blended power rate for those sites is around about 4 cents. They're now explaining that the cost of the energy per Bitcoin is around about 33.7 thousand, which gives them a nice margin. And obviously from that there, you've then got all the operating costs, which are things like G&A costs, salaries, and some other costs that they have to find as well. Obviously, they still have to raise capital to buy these machines and these facilities. That comes in the form of depreciation. And stock compensation is also a key cost as well. If you're going to reward your staff for driving the company's direction, then you need to obviously understand that it is a cost to the company, and it's equally a cost to the shareholders in terms of the fact that the shares effectively dilute the company. So those things need to be taken into account. I also did a quick calculation today. I looked at the cost of a Bitcoin for Mara just to see the improvement there, and I can show now that the gross margin they're achieving is about just over $54,167, which is a margin percentage of 53.6%. That's definitely improvement on previous quarters there. In terms of the other costs that they would apply to that, they've got G&A costs of 16,000 per coin. They've got other operating costs of 9.4 thousand per coin, and some interest, which is effectively about 1.3 thousand per coin. That gives you a total operating cost per coin of 26,861, and therefore they are able to produce at the moment in Q2, the numbers there, they can produce a Bitcoin cash positively. So all the cash costs added together give you a total cost amount of 73,832, which against a revenue per Bitcoin in Q2 at 101,139 gives you a nice margin of about 27%. Now, before you all start running for the hills, the stock compensation, if you were to divide that by the number of Bitcoin, that's worth 23,000 per coin, and depreciation itself is worth about 68,000 per coin. So if they were cash costs, which they're not, that would take the cash cost for a Mara Bitcoin at around about 165,000, which is probably 64,000 more than the coin there. But they're not cash costs. We're looking at cash costs at the moment, and we will articulate that, absolutely you should take full account of depreciation and stock compensation. They're not just pass away costs there at all. They're real costs the company incur. The great thing to see, though, is the fact that they are producing a coin positively with the cash costs that they are required to pay during that quarter. So it gives them around about $27,000 per coin in profit. Now think about that at 101,000 and then move forward and say, actually, Anthony, that the price at the moment is 118,000. That means that margin's obviously increased in terms of gross margin and operating margin. So with the Bitcoin price where it is at the moment, Mara sits to be doing quite well. Obviously, we're going to ask questions of Salman today about stock compensation. It was 54 million for the quarter. We need to get an understanding of how their numbers are driven. What does that really mean? What does it mean for shareholders? How should people view this? Because all we see in the chat is it's sort of be like a one-sided criticism. Are there any sort of positives to take away from this? And get his thoughts on that, and get his thoughts on how the company's moving forward over the next few periods.
Yeah, I like how you said it's a company in transition, and we see that with the portfolio of assets as well. You can see a breakdown of their power pipeline. You've talked about the fact that they're continuing to push to these self-owned or vertically integrated sites, so much so that they've actually gone out and purchased a 139 megawatt wind farm as well in Texas. So you talk about full vertical integration, actually owning the production of the power itself. So looking very forward to the discussion. As you say, a lot of topics on the agenda. We'll be sure to fill up the hour and make sure you guys check that one out tomorrow. In terms of today's podcast, the last piece we have for you, some very exciting developments on the banking front. Our good friend Matt Siegel again posting a tweet here talking about JP Morgan and Coinbase signing a deal to essentially allow interbank transfers. So allowing you to transfer crypto to your actual bank or vice versa, known as a bank to wallet connection. So this is very interesting. You start to think about self-custody, all the hurdles you have to jump over sometimes to access on or off the Bitcoin network. This is really streamlining that, again, to your point about mainstream adoption. So we'll leave it there. I'll let you comment if you have any closing thoughts, Anthony, but getting into earnings season here, you guys, kicking it off with a bang this afternoon with Mara, and excited to see the other company results.
Yeah, so it seems a good update there. I'm just wondering if Coinbase actually charged for that process, and maybe it's another revenue stream for them to get as well. So obviously we'll find out more details as that becomes more apparent. But it is a step in the right direction. It gives holders more control over their allocation of Bitcoin and other crypto-related coins. And so, anything that gives more ownership to the individual is certainly a positive way for me.
It certainly is, and I will bet my bottom dollar they are charging some sort of a fee either to the user or to JP Morgan for that service. But yeah, if you have a Chase credit card, you can now fund your Coinbase account directly, so that's kind of cool too. We'll leave it there, you guys. Let us know if you have any questions. Hit the like button. Feel free to subscribe. We'll see you back here shortly.